You are listening to the Soulless Minions of Orthodoxy, alternative DVD commentaries. Hello, my name is Josh, and sitting with me in the Soulless Minions studios is my brother Justin. Please say hello.
Hello, Justin.
Today we are watching the 1954 film Them!
Isn't it? Them!
Exclamation point. I've seen it referred to both ways, without or with. So,
But never with a question mark.
if you'd like to watch this movie with us, please go ahead and sync this up on your DVD. We're going to pick a sync point, and that is the frame right after the Warner Brothers shield fades away. There's no black point, so it's you're going to be looking at some cacti, some trees in the desert. It's about 9 seconds into the DVD. So why don't you go ahead and cue that up, and we're going to go ahead and get started.
Before we start, did you want to talk about why we're doing this movie, or do you want to do that during the movie?
I was going to wait till we started.
Okay, fair enough.
Mm-hmm. Okay, ready, folks? Here comes the countdown. 3, 2, 1. Unpause. Dun dun dun.
Them in color.
Yeah, I know why that is. But firstly, let's just say the reason why we're doing this movie, which any continuous listeners that we have might be wondering, this is a little bit out of our wheelhouse, and you'd be right. Except for me, might be a little bit more in my wheelhouse than Justin's. That being that I'm
at all.
Well, being that I'm a Godzilla fan.
All right.
Giant monsters. Yeah, makes sense. Coincidentally, this came out the same year as Godzilla in Japan, 1950,
Is that right?
1954. Although I don't know which was released first. It does. I wasn't able to find that information. But we're doing this movie as a request from a longtime listener who recently popped up and requested that we do this movie. He goes by the moniker Ravenheart. And he asked us, hey, do this. This is my favorite movie. And Justin and I thought, all right, we think that's cool.
Well, I do believe my comment to you on that was like, beggars can't be choosers.
Exactly. We often don't get responses, and we never get requests. I think this is the only one of the few requests we've ever gotten.
This is, I think, the second.
We have gotten a few others recently, but all that aside, we got a request, and we're going to honor that request from a longtime listener. So thank you, Ravenheart. Thank you for supporting us over the years. He was one of the first people we ever got emails from when we started doing this, 3 years ago. So, and this was an interesting treat. Definitely.
Yeah, this movie is definitely not something either you or I would really have seen had we not been requested.
Exactly. I probably have heard of it. I don't think I knew anything about what it was.
Yeah, I didn't.
Well, first impressions. What do you think?
It was okay.
Okay, just
you
okay.
Know,
okay.
The big giant animal, doesn't really do too much for me. But in the genre of movies that are big giant attacking animals, it held up. It was a good movie.
It was the first to really start off that.
Yeah, I did find that out. It was one of, if not the first movie to kind of do the raging, larger than it should be monster.
That's why I kind of brought up Godzilla, because Godzilla was kind of inspired by the same thing with radiation, the fear of radiation, nuclear energy, and stuff like that. And they came out in the same year. I'm like, well, did one go off?
I would say probably not. I would say they were just independent.
Well, because I've heard that Godzilla was kind of they took from, maybe it was Beast from 20,000 Fathoms or something, an American giant monster movie. But I've heard that's hearsay. I don't know if that's true. I mean, the creation of Godzilla has many stories. So, but if I hadn't known, because right now there's no giant ants on screen. We're looking at two cops driving through the desert with this little girl. It's very eerie. And, if I didn't know that this movie was about giant ants, I never would suspected it was a giant monster movie.
No.
I liked the first act of the movie. It was creepy.
Yeah, I agree. The
Look
first
at this.
act
Look at this
definitely.
girl here. She's
Yeah.
completely wigged out. Oh yeah. So we're gonna talk about where we know this guy from. Wait till he gets on screen.
We are talking about that guy, the lead.
Yeah,
cop.
the lead cop, the guy on the right, put his arm.
Sergeant.
Right. Oh, he's had a long career, but
Clearly,
I know him from the Shawshank Redemption. Yeah. Brooks.
Yeah.
It took me a little while. He was definitely familiar.
Yeah,
and
it took me about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there looking at him, and I'm like, I know those, like, he's got these dead eyes.
Yeah.
and I was like, I know these eyes, but what cinched it was when he was walking back to the car, and he was walking bow-legged.
Right.
And Brooks walked bow-legged.
Yeah,
and did. Of course, while watching Shawshank, I just attributed it to his old age. But when I saw this, not only did that clue me into who it was, I realized, wow, this man is bow-legged, just for whatever reason. But anyway, yeah.
I didn't have a moment like that, but I know what you mean by him walking bow-legged, especially in Shawshank, because I've seen that movie so many times.
Yeah. See, look, he's walking bow-legged.
Yeah.
You really look.
No, yeah, I see it.
We should also point out that this is very clearly shot in the Mojave Desert.
Very obviously, yeah.
This is probably about 30 minutes from where we live.
Yeah, very clearly in Southern California.
Oh, yeah. This is in our backyard.
Mm-hmm.
We could go and shoot black and white pictures, and it would look just like this.
So, watching the movie so far, you'd think, this could be...
what? I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
What were your impressions? You asked me.
Okay. I enjoyed it for what it is.
For what it is, yeah.
It's clearly of its time.
Yeah.
If I was younger, if I saw this when I was a kid, I probably would have enjoyed it more. But
you know what? That said,
well, let me.
Okay, go.
Can I continue my critique?
Yes.
Okay. I thought the movie was pretty solid for the first two acts, and it kind of dragged in its last act, in the third act, which is not a fortunate fate of any film when its third act is dragging. I don't know if you felt that or not. I felt like it definitely needed to be punched up in the end. I needed some more energy, and it was a little flat. What do you think?
I was waiting.
Okay. Sorry.
I agree with you in that I felt the first act was really mysterious and interesting.
So you could think, this could be like a serial killer, a mob.
Yeah,
of people,
it could be anything.
Could be anything.
If you didn't know at this point, it could be anything, and I was intrigued by that because I did not know it was ants.
Right.
Although I don't agree with you entirely on the third act, and if anything, I thought the second act started to drag a little, and then it started to pick up speed towards the end.
Oh, that's interesting.
But I don't think it picked up quite enough to make up for some of the speed that it had lost in the second act. I felt like the second act, for all whatever information was given to the audience in that, it was basically repeated like 2 or 3 times, and I just kind of got tired of it. That's I think where I sensed the drag. It was just the repetitive information. It's like, well, we know this already. If we weren't directly told, we figured it out. And if we were told, we were told more than once. And I didn't think it was that complex to where we needed to be told multiple times, or just in different fashions.
Maybe give me a for instance.
I'd have to, as we go. There are a couple different scenes where groups of people are being informed about the giant ants, the threat that's coming. And it's like, okay, I don't need to see Group A, Group B, and Group C. I understand why in the plot of the story that more and more people are getting involved, so more people have to be told and all that, but they're just repeating the same information. There's ways around that, to still have characters introduced to the problem, but we as the audience don't necessarily have to hear it. So that's just one for instance that I can think of. There's William Schallert right there.
Right, and I know him as... I don't know his character's name from the Torkelsons. I know he's been in plenty of other things, but he'll
Sure.
always be the house guest in the Torkelsons.
Yeah, sure.
To me,
He played in the remake of Gidget. He played Gidget's dad. He was in an episode of Deep Space Nine. He's a character actor.
oh, which episode of Deep Space Nine was that?
He played a Bajoran that played this very lyrical flute, and it was putting Quark's customers to sleep, and they weren't buying anything. They loved it, but it was like so soothing that they weren't doing anything.
Okay, interesting.
You know, this girl,
Yep.
she's painted as such a major element here in this first 10 minutes. I was actually somewhat disappointed that
When she disappears.
she just disappears.
Well, yeah, that
because
was the end of
she
her
is
story.
immediately interesting.
She is.
A catatonic child, it definitely gets your attention.
Yeah, as I said, it's eerie. She's walking through the desert in her pajamas.
Yeah. And if anything, it's
The
almost
start-
like it
yeah.
didn't entirely pay off. You know?
No.
I mean, a little.
The
but
character had no resolution. She kind of disappeared.
Yeah, there's quite a build-up to almost nothing. Just them.
That's her character arc right
Yeah,
there.
right there.
That's her high point.
Now,
I mean,
what
you
do
gotta
you
be.
yeah.
What? No. Go ahead.
What do you think about the sergeant here, Brooks?
Oh,
What do you think of him? I have my impressions of the character.
why don't you tell me your impressions first?
I
Clearly,
found,
you have more than I do.
I found him an interesting character. I mean, he's not complex, but
Nobody in this
nobody is.
movie is. No.
There are things that I like, though, and I'll talk about that.
Mhm.
I enjoyed his quiet strength.
I don't
he-
know if you can attribute that to the character as written, more to the actor.
I don't know. I
mean, I think it'd have to be the actor.
I would have to say it's a mix of both. It's
Okay.
certainly how it's written because the character doesn't talk much, but it's also just in this man.
I mean,
In-
I know what you mean. He's very stoic.
He is.
I did enjoy
he's
that.
well. You know what? He's not stoic. Stoic is almost emotionless, and I don't think he's emotionless. He's kind of like to me. He's kind of like the astronauts in 2001. They are not emotionless. They are just about the job.
Very professional.
They're very professional. They don't let their fear get the best of them. Multiple times in this movie, this guy is put in situations that no one's trained for. Certainly not a desert cop, of some rinky-dink town.
Mm-hmm.
And he approaches it with, I'm sure the fear is there, but he doesn't let it show. He doesn't panic. He just maybe it's those dead eyes of his. I don't know, but I like that. I like that they didn't, and that this is one of those differences between how movies were made then and how they are now. As much as things, I don't know if this is going to sound right when I say this. As much as things were telegraphed in older movies, the kinds of things that were telegraphed in a 1950s movie are not telegraphed in a movie today. However, things that were not telegraphed in a 1950s movies are telegraphed in movies today. It's hard to explain that, but a character like his is not telegraphed to you, to the audience. We don't know why this guy doesn't talk very much. We don't know why he is the way he is. That's the kind of thing that in a modern day movie we would get backstory on him. His character would be telegraphed. Whereas in a movie like this, things are over-explained. In a modern day movie, they're under-explained.
Well, you're talking about two different types of story elements. You're talking about plot details and character backstory. I mean,
all I'm trying to get at is that
Yeah.
I enjoyed that we were not given more information than what we needed as an audience. Like I said, we may have had information repeated, but we weren't given unnecessary information. We don't know anything about this guy. We don't. I don't know if he has a family at home. I don't know if he has kids. I don't know if he's bucking for a promotion. I don't know.
and you think that's a strength of the movie? The fact that he is I mean, some might say that's underdeveloped.
No, I don't think it's underdeveloped because we don't need to know. I, as an audience member, found myself intrigued by the information that was not given to me. Certain pieces of information are given to us about the doctor's daughter and about the government guy. I don't remember their names. That is kind of paired up with them. We get a little bit about them, but not about the sergeant. And I was interested in him. So when and in a way, he is, for me anyway, he was the audience. He was the most relatable of the group of 4 people. The doctor, his daughter, and the government guy and him. So I was interested in who he was, where he was going, and what he was going to do.
His name is Sergeant Ben Peterson, by the
Sergeant
way.
Peterson. Sergeant Peterson.
This is George Peterson. Nice, call me sir. God damn it.
I enjoyed the little bit of mystery that they had here about the place being broken from the outside, or from the inside out, not the outside in. Things like that. It was interesting. Like you said, the mystery. The first act is the mystery. And he just lost his partner. Well, and just look at the way his performance, it's very understated. I like it. I like it.
You made a really good point. I wish I had been as observant, at least in terms of his character. And I wasn't, particularly because I knew what kind of movie I was getting myself into. And so I was more wrapped up in...
Did you know going in it was about giant ants?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I didn't.
I didn't tell you. But I did. Ravenheart told me. So I knew what it was going to be. And so I was more or less kind of drawn into the plot, at least of the first third, before the first ant is revealed. What kind of this is an odd way. Usually, giant monster movies usually kick off with a giant monster pretty quick. They don't hold it back.
This kind of follows the Jaws approach a little bit.
Yeah, it's not showing them. It's building up suspense. Everything's been very eerie, kind of stark. Nothing really fast-paced, no action. So I was kind of intrigued. I wasn't really paying too much attention to the character, but although now that you admit it, pointed it out. Yeah, he's definitely the most interesting character, I would say. Yeah, but yeah, I mean the other two. Dr. Santa Claus and Dr. Pat.
Dr. Kringle.
Dr. Kringle. It's Dr. Harold Medford and Dr. Patricia Pat Medford.
Right.
But for all intents and purposes, Chris Kringle. He didn't register immediately either.
Took me a minute, but I figured it out.
Yeah.
Although it was his voice.
Oh yeah, it's of course he doesn't have a beard in this. So
now this guy.
This is Robert Graham. So
Graham?
Yeah, James Arnaz.
Oh, that's James Arnaz?
Yes.
Yeah, Robert. I at first I thought, okay, this is going to be, your typical government cutout guy. Cookie cutter guy. But as the movie developed, I mean, no one in this movie is fantastically developed, but again, we don't need them to be, because the movie's not about them; it's about them. I enjoyed the dynamic that started happening between the 4 people. I enjoyed the and I'll talk about it more, I guess, as it goes on. I enjoyed the development of the quasi relationship between Graham and Pat. And in not too long, we're going to get introduced to the doctor and his daughter, and both the sergeant, because the sergeant is not unemotional, he's still a man. The sergeant and Graham, they both see the daughter, and they're like, "Hey, she's pretty hot."
There was a little bit.
And for a second, I thought, okay, this is what they're going to do. They're going to have the 2 guys kind of vying for the attention of this girl,
right?
And they don't do that at all. And that was another element that I really enjoyed. And there's a couple reasons for that. One is the stuff I already mentioned about Peterson, and that he's almost this enigma, and he backs off, or I should say he never even tries, really. The dynamic is allowed to grow between Graham and Pat, and that seemed to happen very naturally. These two characters who are attracted to each other are put into this extraordinary situation, and thank God they didn't overplay this relationship that was developing. It was just kind of there subtly, and I enjoyed that, and that felt natural, as opposed to a movie today when they would stop the animal attack for a love scene. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. That's what I mean, where nothing is given in this that you don't actually need. We don't need to see them go to dinner and have a romantic time together. The little bits are there, and that's all they'd have time for. And I enjoyed that. Yes, Peterson isn't developed terribly much. Neither is anyone. But the doctor, his daughter, and Captain Government here, they get just a little more, which only serves to accentuate that that Sergeant Peterson is kind of a mystery, that enigma I talked about.
You're right. I think that even in that time in the 50s, that studios were aware of inserting a love story, that kind of factor, into their movies, even if it was a sci-fi flick like this.
Yes, but
the fact that they did do that, that's great. Although they immediately when I saw that one of the scientists was a woman and a pretty woman, I'm like, well,
yeah, look, they're all just.
Oh yeah, that was funny.
And I love that the dad is conveniently looking the other way as everyone's
yeah.
gawking at his daughter, and she is attractive.
She's an attractive woman who has you would never see an attractive woman as a scientist. It's the Christmas Jones treatment.
I was waiting for you to bring that up.
And that's fine. She's respectable beauty. She's not.
She doesn't do much.
She's not big-breasted or anything like that. I mean,
yeah.
This is 1954, so she's classy. But,
yeah, she's never scantily clad or anything.
No, but look at the smile on his face.
Look at he's like, I'm glad she's a doctor. I think I'm going to get sick.
Yeah. They make a few comments like that.
Yeah.
I thought that was.
But I was wondering as I watched this, the dynamic and the relationship that happens between Pat and Graham.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering how much of that was absolutely the writer's intention to do it that way, or the director's, or how much of it was the 1950s standard of what they do and don't do on
I think
screen.
It's a mixture of both.
It's hard to say.
They could never go too far. They always had to.
True, but that could just be the work of a good writer that decided, no, this
that
is
too.
all I'm going to do.
That too. I mean, they had to be creative to find ways to get around that code. So
yeah,
of course. Yeah.
But I mean, they don't do anything that even gets close to violating that code. So that's why I wonder if it was really just a writing choice and a directing choice not to accentuate it beyond what we see here. Mm-hmm. And this is okay. Here's another example of don't give us more than what we need. The first time we see the doctor and Pat is when they arrive on the plane. The guys are talking in the office. Hey, we've put in a call to Dr. So-and-so because he's the leading expert in such and such. And they're there.
Dr. So-and-so, leading expert in such and such. That was beautiful. All right.
So there they are. We, the audience, get them when the people in the movie who need them get them. And if this movie were made today, we would cut from, all the guys, the sheriffs and all that talking in the office to, bustling New York City, and we get 5 or 10 minutes of introductions of the doctor and his daughter and how smart the doctor is, and he's kind of dejected from his field, but he really knows what he's talking about, and all this extraneous crap that you don't need, that they fluff movies up with these days. We get what we need, and that was something I really, really enjoyed. I know I keep talking.
You
about
seem
that,
to. I'm surprised because you said you had an okay opinion of the film. You seem to
it's a
enjoy
monster flick.
quite a
Monster
lot of it.
flicks aren't my forte. I mean,
No, it's not
this
your
is a
bag of
movie
tricks.
about giant. This
Here
is
it
a movie
comes.
about giant ants.
Here it comes. She just
Bam!
invoked the title. And this is it. I mean, this is the apex of her character.
Honestly, and when I watched this, it occurred to me, why the hell is this movie called Them? It should just be called Ants. I mean, come on. If she had screamed ants, it would have made more sense.
Yeah, well, Them
Whatever.
sounds more intriguing than ants.
I guess.
I mean, that's pretty. I think.
And here
Right,
goes
I
the
think-
intriguing girl. You know,
That's it. She's gone.
Yeah.
I think the writers knew that they wanted to make something respectable. You can't have a movie
Maybe.
called Ants. I mean, just can't walk into a meeting and say bugs.
dude, I watched the trailer for this.
Uh-huh.
It's every scene that has the ant or ants in it is in the trailer.
Right.
Calling it Them really wasn't sparing anything. So
Well, it
just
is
call
a bit more
Ants.
catchy.
Well, maybe so.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yes, sir. Excuse me.
So this is White Sands. Yeah, close to. I'm guessing it's close to Stallions Gate, New Mexico, where Sam Beckett will be doing time travel later on.
Indeed.
And this is where the space shuttle landed in Space Camp
That's right.
and the site of the first atomic bomb. That's why these ants get blown up to ginormous size.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you say, Doctor.
Rather slim pickings for
So,
food.
was this like one of the only monster movies that you could recall ever seeing? Because okay, wait. Before we go on to that, you and I, before we began the commentary, days ago, you asked me if we wanted to give it the MST3K treatment, the Mystery Science Theater treatment, and I said no. Let's not do that because let's show the movie its dues. It's a very well respected film, and it is a good movie. But
you were right.
yeah.
It's just as I watched it, because I've seen a number of Mystery Science Theater episodes. Because they did these older,
they did
monster movies a lot, or things of that nature.
Their bag of tricks was 1950s B movies,
Exactly.
sci-fi B movies, and so when I was watching it, I would hear them in my head.
Yeah, even though I was enjoying the movie, I
yeah,
could still
sure,
see,
sure.
like when they show the establishing shot of the girl walking, in my head, I heard, high above the Mojave Desert, and then it cuts to the guy, the interior of the plane. Nope, sorry, now we're on a soundstage. Things like that.
Yeah, right.
I couldn't help it. I couldn't help it.
Yeah.
But you were right. We need to give the movie its due, and
right.
and we're doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I would make funny little asides, here and there, just because I was conditioned. I was
Exactly.
I've watched far more MST3K than most, even you. So, probably not to my benefit, but
If I am correct, and the mounting evidence.
but they're not. Looks like they're on a stage now.
Yeah, I was actually wondering about that when I watched it.
That
because
tree is obviously real, but it looks like they're there's that wind machine blowing sand, but it looks like it's a backdrop.
Right. No. What made me wonder about it is when they get out of the car. When they get there, they're
'Cause
clearly
this is real.
like that they're on location.
Right.
And when it started going between the shots where you wonder, are they on a stage? It started. I started wondering, like, did they shoot when they arrived on set? Was it really this windy, or did they add this?
Oh, no way. No, that's definitely generated.
Well, I couldn't help but wonder why. It was a nice touch.
Oh, the sandstorm?
Yeah,
Oh,
it was
yeah.
it was a nice touch, and it added a level to the scene that wouldn't have been there. And
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, the scene
I thought
definitely,
it was a good choice.
Oh, yeah. The scene definitely would have been less interesting if it was calm. Yeah, I mean, you want the sandstorm. Look, the negative space above her head. You're like, I know something's coming. Something's
Of course.
coming.
Yeah.
You're like, where's the ants? Okay, so first ant is about 28 minutes in.
Mm-hmm.
The first sighting of them, or it. It's not them. There's only one. So, a lot of people might think this is cheesy. So
Well, it is.
it is, and the effects for the time though are not bad.
Well, it is what it is.
It is what it is. It's watching so much Mystery Science Theater. Now I love this. This is the first time that
I blew his antler off.
I know. This is where I was really like, man, this guy's hardcore. Watch when he's like,
I know when he's about to do what he does.
Yeah, I know. I was like, man,
I thought, what in God's name does this country bumpkin cop have a semi-automatic Uzi?
Yeah, I was
in his car.
This is when he first kind of won me over. I was like, oh, all right. This
I know. I
look at him. He's like,
I was like, he's got a freaking machine gun in there.
I know. He's like, why does he have?
And he's not being delicate about using it either.
Yeah, no, he has like a Tommy gun in his car. I was like, wow, all right.
It's not quite a Tommy gun.
Yeah, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's a machine gun.
It's a machine gun. He has a gat. I was like,
how many cops carry machine guns?
They
in their
don't.
Car? and this is a desert town, you know. But yeah, I agree. I was like, wow, this guy's hardcore. All right.
Yeah, that was a good action beat right there. It's
Yeah.
like, all right.
Yeah.
And you really see a lot of machine guns in the end.
Mm-hmm.
So, Commipitus vimichinus from the family Formicida. I missed it.
She's really quite attractive.
I think so. Huh?
I hate the 50s hairdo that women had, but or at least that she's sporting in this. But
they have that hat stapled onto his head.
of course,
How is that not blowing off any of their heads?
it's got to be so tight.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Yeah, no, you don't think she's attractive?
Oh yeah, she's attractive. Of course she is. She's a movie star.
Well, I've never seen her in anything.
Uh,
Not that I know of.
no. But I haven't seen many, other than Mystery Science Theater. I haven't seen many black and white sci-fi films, and the one that always comes to mind is The Day the Earth Stood Still. So. This is very, seeing a black and white sci-fi film, all I kept thinking about was The Day the Earth Stood Still. Did you have that?
No,
No?
I wasn't really thinking about that movie at all. Actually,
Okay.
I found myself, believe it or not, thinking about how similar it looked in composition, and because it's black and white, blah blah, the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, Twilight Zone. Sure.
And I just couldn't help but be struck by how if I were to just turn the TV on and this was on, I may have thought, hey, it's a Twilight episode, just it's a testament to how things were made, both on television and on film. Very high standards were taken, and black and white gives it a quality.
You're definitely right. The movie has a definite texture quality to it. I that I enjoyed. It's well made.
And mind you, when I'm comparing the look of this feature film to television episodes of The Twilight Zone, that's not to disparage either one of them. They're both shot on film. They're both competently lit and staged and everything. It's, comedy shows of the time were staged very differently. But a TV show and a movie, for the most part, they looked pretty much the same if the effort was put into it. Whereas today, TV shows and movies, they have different looks to them.
Well, TV shows.
They're getting
become
better,
much more cinematic.
Much better. Yes, indeed. But still, a movie's a movie, and they usually feel different.
Yeah.
But this, like I said, they could be interchangeable.
A lot of reviews that I looked up, a lot of people commented on it being very atmospheric.
Yeah.
You think
I'll
so?
give it that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I did read that that apparently it was supposed to be in color and in 3D.
Okay, so is that why the title was in color?
More than likely, yeah. So
that really caught my attention, and
yeah,
I found that interesting.
yeah. So it was supposed to be color and 3D. Now I'm sure glad it didn't end up in 3D or color, because it definitely would have, I think, hurt the film. It gives it a certain creepiness. Black and white does remove you from reality. It makes it inherently more creepy. When you're in a black and white environment as opposed to color. And 3D was just a gimmick, and that would have turned this movie into a gimmick. And I'm just glad they didn't do that. I mean, don't you think that would have been, bad for the movie?
Well, the color issue.
This was a funny. I thought this was a funny beat.
Oh yeah.
teaching him how to use the radio. He's like, you have to say over. But she knows I'm done talking. Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I know, but you still have to do it.
That was funny. It
And
was.
then he got on there and said over. He's like, oh, you're happy.
He's like,
now,
"Wait,
huh?"
you're happy now, aren't you?" Yeah, I was like,
that wasn't nice.
that was funny. They definitely didn't. I mean, it was just a comic beat. It was funny. It was definitely.
It was a nice little. It was funny and it was a character beat too.
Yeah, it was.
You
it was
you learned
nice.
something about both of them.
Yeah, that was funny. I was definitely amused because I didn't see
Yeah.
it. I was like, wow, that was a little funny aside. It had nothing to do with the plot. It doesn't
Yeah, I
advance.
agree.
It doesn't
Yeah.
advance anything. It was just like, let's have a moment here where we do something silly
Yeah,
and
I
break
agree.
and
I
break the
agree.
tension. Comic relief.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
But as far as the color in 3D, yeah, I agree. I think the movie works better in black and white. It's hard to say, of course, unless we were to have seen it
yeah.
in color. But
Well, it's like you said with the Twilight Zone. I mean, they did do the Twilight Zone again in the 80s and in the early 2000s in color, and it's not the same.
strange as it may sound, and it's hard. We're guessing here,
Yeah.
but the movie might have looked cheaper had it been in color.
Oh, definitely. This was
As-
funny.
as
This
for
is
the
funny, like the
3D
bones.
Yeah. As for the 3D stuff,
It's like I would imagine the ant saying, "What? I just found this stuff here. What are you looking at me? I didn't do anything. I was just coming to say hello." Anyway, sorry. What were you saying?
well, just like movies today are shot with the idea of 3D in it, and then they convert it and all that stuff.
A lot of movies even aren't. They just add 3D after the fact.
Well, yeah. So a movie like this, it could have been composed to have the 3D element put into it, but it's unlikely that we would then be watching the actual 3D version. We'd just be watching the 2D version of it. The 3D would have only been in theaters. So I really don't think it would have affected the movie one way or the other, except for that the studio might have insisted on having, more direct shots of the ants swinging around at the camera needlessly.
They said, I read that there's a few shots that are meant to be 3D gimmicks.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But, so I would say the idea of having it be 3D is less or potentially less of a detriment to the movie than if it had been in color.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, black and white kind of has this eeriness and removes you from the reality of it. And color, as great as color is, it also is very unforgiving.
Mm-hmm. And
they can do that fake background we were seeing of them in the desert, and it's more forgivable in black and white than it is in color.
Yep.
Well, and it's the 50s. Let's face it,
people,
it's the 50s.
And people look better in black and white. People photograph better in black and white. I mean, if you ever taken a picture of yourself and you turn
try
it
not to.
And same for me. If I do, I'll usually convert it to black and white just because it makes you look classy.
Well, it adds something. No doubt about
It does. It does. There was an old episode of Siskel and Ebert. They were doing a special on black and white movies, and they did their show in black and white. And they dressed up in tuxedos, and they're like, "See, don't we look so much more classy and sophisticated now that we're in black and white? Just trust us. Watch an old color episode. You'll see what I mean."
Right.
But I mean, they definitely had a point, and I think one thing that always stuck with me with regard to color versus black and white was when we saw that PBS documentary all those years ago. What's it called? I've gone blank.
Now that you're
Visions of Light.
Visions of Light. Yeah.
Where they talk about black and white in great detail.
Mm-hmm.
And they use that phrase, removed from reality by its very nature. I'll never forget that.
But as you go on watching the movie, you forget that it's black and white.
Oh, of course. But
because you know what color the desert is.
Yeah.
You know what color skin tone they have. I forget.
Okay. Well, it gave me an
Look
appreciation
at this.
to that.
They're on a set.
Those are backdrops.
You couldn't do that in color.
No.
It would look cheap.
Yep.
It wouldn't look right.
Yep.
But in black and white, you're you're just able to pull it off.
So, in moments like this, don't you think Sergeant Peterson's going a little over his job?
He's going a little over his pay grade.
He's using a bazooka here.
I know. The thought occurred to me as we were watching it. I was like, wait a second. Why is he doing this?
Exactly.
The military's there.
See,
They're
there.
providing the weapons.
Yeah.
They really didn't give them soldiers to shoot them. But, whatever. It's not like things are any different now. You still have the main stars doing more than what they should.
See, that's processed. I mean,
I just would have liked a reason. Give us a throwaway line or two explaining why Sergeant Peterson is
there
doing these things. He could be there, but, he's like leading the charge.
Yeah, he's a patrolman, basically.
Yeah,
basically,
he's a small-town patrolman.
Yeah.
How would he even know how to fire a bazooka?
Well, all I could think about while watching him do that was from In the Army Now, when Pauly Shore picks up a bazooka and he puts it on, he faces it the wrong way, and then his drill sergeant comes out to him and says, "See the picture on there?" He's like, "Do that. It's put there for privates like you. This thing's idiot-proof." So, but in the end, he still fired it backwards anyway. But one thing I think that I found surprising in the end of this movie, because right now we're getting the first taste of the ants in the holes, was in the end they go on a hunt, and it's kind of in the tunnels,
Yeah.
And what I thought was going to happen was going to be, they're going to do a big army of ants or something like that. It's going to be a process shot. Well, we're going to get a lot of fighting with ants. It's going to be a big battle, and it wasn't really like that. And
I doubt they had the money.
Well, no, yeah, it was obviously a budget concern, and I kind of liked the fact that they didn't do that. I was like, it probably wouldn't have looked very good, but it did remind me of Alien and Aliens. And a review that I read, it reminded him of the same thing. Did you have that?
Not that specific thought, but now that you say it, yeah, I can see that.
We're down in the tunnels. We got eggs, and they're talking about acid.
Yeah,
they have flamethrowers and stuff.
Yeah, and you said Alien.
See, he's got a
Aliens.
flame. He's got a flame. Peterson has a flamethrower.
Yeah.
This guy's
and I think you're right. It's definitely a mix of Alien and Aliens, where Alien is about the one, but they're still in these little tunnels and having to flush them out that way. And Tom Skerritt even uses flamethrowers and all of that.
Is this part of the dynamic that you enjoyed here, where he's
it's part of it.
He's resisting her being
building.
there.
Yeah, it's building their, their dynamic and their relationship, and it's making him a little more interesting. He's not cookie cutter.
Yeah,
I like it. Like it.
The acting on his face was good. He was obviously not happy with that.
Yeah,
having to let her go along.
Mm-hmm.
That was good. Some subtleties that I didn't give credit to the first time around, but
I don't recall if they actually mention it in dialogue, but since you were talking about the ending, and going through the tunnels and fighting them that way, I don't remember if it was mentioned in dialogue, but it clearly is not an accident that the climax of this movie takes place in man-made tunnels that are the human versions of what ants do with digging their tunnels. I'm sure that was not a mistake or a coincidence or whatever. I liked that.
Yeah.
That it, instead of being down in the ground, in these dirt tunnels, which we've already seen at this point in the movie, they take it to the man-made tunnels, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, it's a good way to change things up.
Rather than have them
do this
out
again
on the streets.
Yeah, that's what I thought I was going to see. Oh, they're going to be out on the streets and blah, blah, blah. Although something else somebody else pointed out, in which I kind of made note of, was that we never do get to see the ants fly. I thought they would try to make that effort maybe once, but it probably wouldn't have looked that good.
I'm sure you thought the same thing during this scene that I did.
I probably didn't, because
I was thinking, oh my God, it's Starship Troopers.
Oh no,
they're descending into the tunnels.
I didn't go there. It's bugs.
Yeah, bugs. This is Starship Troopers, man. Totally.
Just trying to kill a few bugs, sir. Get out of here.
You know what this is? Sure you do. You're a big smart bug,
aren't you? Yeah. I should have thought of that. Whoops. Feel ashamed.
It's obviously a conceit that characters like we're seeing now are not only going a bit above and beyond what they would be doing under the circumstances, but now they're alone. Where were these guys that were out there with them before, helping them with the bazookas and all of that?
Why aren't they down there?
Why aren't they down there? You know, but it increases the threat.
Sure.
We know that.
Well, see, this is like Aliens. You know, more or less.
And you know, also what I enjoyed and I'm almost
although
certain.
I found this to be a little harsh. You know, for audiences of the time, they're using flamethrowers on these things.
They're burning these creatures to death.
They're burning them alive. And I thought,
Yeah.
wow, that's a very cruel way to kill them. I mean, even when they're shooting, but still.
It is, but the machine guns, you know, that takes so long. You know, the heat
Yeah.
will stop them immediately.
Yeah, right.
But what?
Not so much to look after you scrape them off your boot.
You like that? You like that? You want some more?
You fucking sack of maggot puke. Right. I mean, didn't you think that was kind of brutal? It was.
Oh, I did.
Particularly
Yeah,
for the 1954 audience.
definitely. The thought did occur to me that is kind of brutal.
Young kids are going to watch this,
And it was made further brutal to me by the idea that what I was totally expecting to see, and it never happened. And again, to the movie's credit, was that at no point when the genocide of this, you could almost call it a new species, because obviously ants aren't this big, so you could say this is, ant species 2.0. At no point does Dr. Kringle and his daughter, who are experts in this field, who have spent their lifetimes.
Wait.
Yeah, at no point did they say,
that's
no, wait, save them.
See,
We'll put them in a zoo. If anything, the one most advocating their destruction is Dr. Claus.
Right. Yeah.
And he's like, no, this is what you need to do. Burn them. Kill them.
Yeah, I was really shocked at that.
I was too. And never is there any lip service paid one way or the other to saying... to giving the doctors, both of the doctors, the option to go, this is, maybe we could look at a peaceful way, and then everyone else just convinces them otherwise. Right. And nor is there a scene where the doctor just by himself pauses and thinks about it. I mean, he immediately launches into extermination.
Right. Yeah, I was really shocked because...
And no one says anything about it.
No. I mean, this is... this new species is a species that's a byproduct of man. I mean, they inadvertently created them by using nuclear energy. So it's like, shouldn't we be... We're responsible for this, but...
I guarantee you that scene would have happened were that movie made today.
Oh, definitely. And, when you're right, he was the first advocate to say, no, we have to destroy them immediately. But who knows what other damage has been done. And I'm like, well, geez, man.
The only time he advocates waiting... is to determine if the queens have hatched.
All right.
And he's only saying that because they need to know so they can go kill them too. It's not don't kill them. It's just no, wait a second so we can make sure we're getting them all.
Yeah, right.
And I love that. I love that he's spearheading the charge. And that not one single person is advocating saving them. I was really surprised that scene never happened.
Yeah, well, that's just a sign of the times.
I guess
I mean,
it
if
is.
it had been made today, there would have been that person, just like there would have been that love scene, that you talked about, that love subplot, that wasn't so subtle, just much more in your face.
And isn't subtle so much more interesting?
Yes.
Especially on rewatching it, because then you get to really enjoy that subtlety.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in your face, once it's over, it's done. It's not fun anymore.
Yeah, Christmas only comes once a year.
Oh, Jesus.
Such a bad joke. How did that joke ever make it into a major Hollywood movie?
How did the studio go? Maybe we're pushing it.
I could just imagine, opening night, maybe I don't know if it was sold out that night, but when
I was there.
When that joke happens, everyone just goes.
Everyone did. I was there in a packed house.
No,
in a packed house.
Everyone
and when he said "Christmas comes once a year," there was an audible gasp, and it wasn't like it was. oh, really? I mean, it was amazing.
You went there.
And yeah, no one was impressed, and no one was offended. They were just literally thinking, "Why was that necessary?" People of all ages. It was sad. Oh yeah, this is one of the scenes I was talking about, where it's information,
Right.
and it's not, for the most part, it's not really anything we don't know, and it's characters for the most part that don't have dick to do with the story anyway. So it's just our heroes informing more people.
Well, the audience. It is kind of too much exposition, I guess.
There is a little bit of information that comes out.
Right.
But maybe it's just the way that it's done, because I don't care about anyone at that table. Not a one of them.
Well, except for Peterson.
Well, yeah, obviously. But I don't care. And
Yeah, because
I know as a matter of plot why they're doing it,
Yeah,
because they need the resources, so they have
Yeah.
to tell all these people and convince them and this
Well,
and that.
this is a way to give a backstory for them,
For the ants.
for them. It tells us a little bit about. Oh, I didn't know this about ants. I mean, this is a cool lighting scheme they have on him, but I found this scene interesting in its information, although it wasn't wholly necessary to be given this kind of National Geographic explanation of how ants operate. It did give you a better insight into how they are thinking, if you were ever thinking that.
Mm-hmm.
But since the ants, them, they're never really on screen for very long. But it's more about the threat they present.
Mm-hmm.
But this was interesting, kind of as a scene on its own to see. I'd forgotten this about ants, that they behave this way for that reason. And look how strong they are. That puts a threat in your mind. Like they're so strong, they can carry 20 times their own weight. And they show that balance the scale. Where they have ants on one side and something on the other. Like, wow, they're so strong. Look at them moving the rock.
Yeah.
This is gonna be scary. What are they going to do? Are they going to be pushing around boulders in the end,
And they actually didn't really use that.
No, they didn't. No. It's just to build tension, You think that might be foreshadowing in some way, but they really didn't do much with it in the end.
Yeah.
Because, see, this is what I meant by them balancing the weight. I don't know if it really works that way. I don't think so.
Yeah.
But just because you can lift that amount of weight doesn't mean you're going to balance that amount of weight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't quite work that way.
No.
But in layman's terms, I guess they were trying to describe it. They're definitely limited by their effects of what they could do with the ants.
And if they had more money to do more elaborate effects, I'm sure we would have seen the flying ants.
Right. I really thought,
and they would have been flying in kamikaze style and decapitating people just like in
Starship
Troopers.
Yeah, I really expected to see maybe a queen ant, because they make reference to the queen. I was like, a queen, like in Aliens, like Queen Alien. Okay, makes sense. There's gonna be one giant alien at the end, and
yeah, they do set that up pretty heavily, and there's really no payoff to that, other than saying, that's the queen nest.
Well, yeah, you see princess ants,
right,
but not a queen,
let alone a gun.
Not enough to necessitate an entire wreck.
No, I don't even own a gun, let alone many guns to necessitate a gun rack. What am I going to do with a gun rack?
See, they're fighting. That's good.
Yeah.
They'll fight for up to 72 hours.
Yeah, and that was interesting.
Yeah.
But he's gone on for a little too long. If they had cut that scene in half, edited it down, made it half as long, it might have been a little more tense and a little more engaging. Right. But it just kind of, at some point, you are watching a National Geo, segment.
Yeah, and it's like, I'm still wondering, why is Peterson here?
Yeah,
he doesn't really need to be
he'd be gone by now.
He doesn't, it's like, when we were doing Man of Steel, it's like, why is Lois Lane on that plane?
I know, exactly.
Although, this is a little bit more, explainable. I mean, at least it was like, I discovered the...
Sure, I mean, you could reason that he's here at this point to give the layman's input on, look, I fought one of these myself.
To be the liaison between the scientists.
Yeah,
and
but it's never actually said. Oh, and interesting, I caught earlier in the movie, there was a close-up of Peterson's hand, and he has something on his wedding ring finger. Only it's not a ring. It's like a piece of string.
Oh,
Look, if they ever show you close enough, take a look. It's a string on his wedding finger.
okay.
Never explained. Interesting to me. It makes me wonder:
That's
is he gay?
that's something.
Is
in
that
the
something
actor.
between he and his partner?
Really?
I don't know.
I think that's reaching, but
Oh, of course it is. I'm just saying it's intriguing to me because rather than have nothing, he has a string there, and it makes me wonder what it is.
I wonder if that string was there in Shawshank, and we never noticed.
Probably is.
I know they're about a
Good amount of smoking in this movie.
Oh, of course.
Fedoras. Nice.
Love the fedoras.
I like this. Monitor all news for kidnapping, missing persons, unsolved murders, alleged suicides, migrations of wildlife, thefts of sugar syrup sweets, strange phenomenon as flying saucers, strange odors, high-pitched sounds, unnatural, all things alive or dead. I'd like that. I was like, wow, that's a lot of information to put up on that sign. Nice.
This is an example of
See, this
the
is
second. Spock.
Yeah. I read that. That this was a early role of his.
Oh, I know. God, he's so young.
I didn't notice the first time around.
Oh, I did.
Okay, I wasn't really looking at his face because you just see the side there.
Yeah.
But
This.
flying saucers shaped like ants. I thought, no, okay, didn't have to go that route.
Look at Peterson back there. He's just kind of like hanging out, waiting until he's needed. You know, he's not putting in input that he's unqualified to chime in on. He's just patiently waiting. But the scene that's coming up with the guy, the drunk or this guy, whatever the hell he was, I forget. He was some sort of pilot or something, I think, right?
Yeah.
It's not a bad scene or anything. It goes on a little long, and I don't think he talks about the Queen, the flying.
Yeah.
But other than that, it just kind of takes up a little bit of space.
Well, that's what I was going to mention to you. This is like the third act. This is
No, see, to me, this is the second.
Okay, to me, this is the beginning of the third act, and this is where it kind of starts to.
Oh, see, now to me, this is
Okay,
still in
well,
the second.
okay.
and
This is the end of the second act. Sorry,
it's getting close to it. Yeah,
it's the end of the second act is where it starts to kind of drag.
and they spend a fair amount of time in this room.
Too much time.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is.
This is almost the same thing as with the little girl. You think, oh well, this guy must be really important,
but he's not.
But he's not. The information that's conveyed in this scene could have been conveyed in a phone call to their office, going, hey, some guy saw a flying thing. Oh my God, it's a giant flying ant. But instead we get 5 to 10 minutes of all this.
Uh-huh. Well, I mean, the way they're painting this scene, I mean, I don't think it works primarily because we already know what the mystery is.
We know what it is.
And we know that it's giant ants. When it was the girl, we didn't know what it was.
True. Good point.
But he's saying, it came down. It looked like a giant ant. I'm like, yeah, we know that already.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. There's no tension because we know. You're right. They know. We know.
But he doesn't know. So it's
and everybody's letting him think he's crazy.
Yeah. The only mystery there was what is it, and it's been solved.
Yeah.
And you're right. They are letting him believe that he is crazy. He's in a loony bin here. The window has bars on it. So
yeah, and he even tells the doctor specifically at the end, "Don't let him out. Don't let him talk to anybody."
Right. And I mean, right now they're just trying to keep it under wraps, and they're just trying to track where the ants are going. So them having this whole extended scene with this guy, they didn't really need. All they needed was the information. Like, an ant's been spotted.
That's what I said. It could have been conveyed in a phone call.
Oh, I mean, but they could have talked to him just for a minute.
Yeah, if they were going to have the scene, they could have trimmed it down to
Definitely.
make it like a quarter of what it is.
And they talked to another guy.
They do?
Yeah.
The drunk guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another example of, it's like, what the hell are we watching? On its own, it's not a bad scene. But it's like you said, we already know what it is. There's no tension. And that drunk guy, make me a sergeant, get me the booze. Make me a sergeant, get me the booze. It was kind of funny. But totally.
So this whole
unnecessary.
this whole dialogue. It's like I'm convinced he's trying to play a publicity stunt, but we know he's not. We know he's honest.
Yeah,
So-
I know. It's ill-timed. If they had taken this same scene and put it half an hour ago, it might have played better.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When maybe they knew, but we didn't yet. Like the first ant hadn't been encountered yet.
Something
yeah.
or other. Yeah.
Yeah.
White Sands to Brownsville?
White
Southeast.
Sands.
Now there's karate.
Oh, is that what it said on the map?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was talking. No, he was talking about it.
Okay.
In the area. On the day that Trotty had his experience with the ants, they'd followed the line of least resistance.
Oh, Peterson's not in the scene. It's the first scene. Well,
No, he's off doing something else.
Yeah, he hasn't been absent of him in a while.
I think he's at home with his partner because that's what that little little thing on his finger is.
His Oh, you mean his gay?
His partner.
His husband. I was like, his partner's dead. I was like, as soon, flashing back to that scene.
Maybe he's at the memorial for his partner.
Okay, maybe so. Well, flashing back to that scene, as soon as Peterson left, I was like, oh, this guy's dead. I mean, you knew he was Officer Dead Meat as soon as he was on screen.
Of course.
I was like, well, I recognize him. I don't recognize this actor. I'm guessing he's going to die.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like a very masculine typist.
Yeah.
That's all right.
That's cool, right, man? Equal opportunity.
So it's kind of dragging. This is late in the second act.
And I think you have inadvertently hit on the reason why.
This is the Wilhelm scream. The first time I heard it.
Yeah. I
Did you heard it a couple of times too? He's like,
Yeah, more than
"Ah!"
once.
right there. Anyway, so what were you saying?
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head as to why, for me, it's the second act. Why the second act drags a bit, and that's because we already know. I think you really hit the nail on the head. I think any scene that drags the movie down is because we already know. The crazy guy, both crazy guys, we already know. Now we're getting another update, as you know, scene kind of a thing, informing a group of people. We already know. The scene that they just showed took about 30 seconds to a minute, showing the army guy, trying to make the call when they're getting under attack. Got it. We know what's going on. More areas are being attacked. Some of this could be mildly interesting, but this is what I mean. This is more is being telegraphed to us than we really need to know. I realize that's in total conflict to what I've been saying earlier on. It's not that it's unnecessary information, so let me rephrase. It's not that it's unnecessary. It's just reiterating it in a different way. And just kind of don't need it. This scene as an example could be about half the length that it is.
I mean, yeah, I know what they're trying to.
Sure, so do
What
I.
they're trying to do is, show us that the ants have moved and they're continuing to move and threaten people. But
Yeah.
it definitely doesn't need to be this long, And I mean, thankfully, they didn't show us the scenes where it attacked the two men, who were in the loony bin.
Mm-hmm.
But it just showed us the ship scene.
But see, like, what they're doing right now, the scene should be about half as long as it is, and it should have been cut up with another quick scene, like how we just saw 30 seconds of a little military installation getting attacked. Show us another 30-second scene of, two pilots in a plane, and, oh my God, what is that? And a big ant flies by and crashes into them or whatever. I would rather see quick flashes of what everyone there was just talking about than spending a couple minutes of them just talking. You know what I mean? I get the intention of the scene, like you were saying, that they're delivering this information, they're trying to build the credible threat, but just give me a snippet here or there. Keep the pace up. You know what I mean? This is another example of what you were talking about. We already know.
Peterson's back, though.
Peterson's back. But like you said,
Yeah, I know.
we already know. This
we
is
do
a
already know.
repeat of the scene in the beginning of the movie.
Right.
And this next 5 minutes could have been completely taken out and we wouldn't have lost anything. Again, it's not bad. It's just reiterating it. It's not extraneous information. It's just duplicate information. This whole movie probably could have lost 10 minutes.
Yeah. And
been better for it.
But it also, it's like, well, since they do know what it is, why do they ask so many questions? It doesn't seem to make sense logically. It's like, well,
no, I agree.
Yeah.
They already know. And I think probably part of the reason, if we're going to be realistic about it, is probably budgetary. They don't have the money to show all these ants doing these things, so they have to have these examples of talking about it.
Well, yeah, I guess.
Now this was a good scene. I like this.
They don't show it.
They don't show it.
But you're imagining it. You're like,
but it's physically happening. It's right in front of them.
Right.
It's not them at a table talking about it. It's this guy's right here.
Right.
And you keep waiting. Are we going to get to see it? And this guy's telling us just how brutal these ants are. Here's an example right in front of the characters. We may not see it, but at least they are. And it's something new. We've already seen the place broken out from the, inside out. We've already seen that. Didn't need that. But this was different. This added to their threat. So, just a little bit of trimming, I think, would have tightened it up and made it better. This was interesting. I found this interesting. That this spurs. Now we're into the third act. This spurs what leads them into those tunnels.
I wouldn't say the third act has begun yet.
I would say this is it. We're getting introduced to the mother, who is her information takes them to the tunnels.
I would say the third act would definitely be when they transition into the city and go into the.
Well, maybe so. Maybe this scene might button up the second act. Because there's certainly no denouement.
No,
like a lot of these older movies. Once the thread is over, the movie's over.
It's literally the end, fade to black. There's nothing else after that.
They're dead. Da da da. The end.
Yeah.
You gotta admire them for that.
Yeah. Don't waste anybody's time.
Yeah. Get in and get out, man.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I think the movie. Let me see. The movie clocks in at an hour and 32 minutes. And like movies from the 50s, like most movies from the 50s, it does not have, an extravagant credit sequence. So really, 131 minutes or, an hour and 31 minutes is probably pretty accurate as far as, the storytelling time of the movie.
Right.
Probably about a minute bookended is the credits, beginning and end. So to say they could have lost 10 minutes of the movie to really tighten the pacing of this second act, I think would have been good. And honestly, even though I've already said I like the way it is, I wouldn't have mind seeing just a little bit more of the daughter, because I found her attractive and I wanted to see more of her. Or like I said, show another scene or two, an actual scene of the escalating violence that the ants are bringing about, and that could have still balanced the runtime to about 90 minutes.
Well, I think you hit on something there when you said budgetary reasons, and we're having these scenes when we already know what the mystery is, but we're having these characters come in for one scene and describe things to us. And I think when you said budgetary, you're like, well, maybe that's why they couldn't afford to show devastation on a huge scale.
That's probably it.
Right.
Yeah.
So
we're about to get into that. You're right. We're still in the second act.
Yeah. The only scene that we saw was the scene on the boat. And I'm like, well, maybe that was their one scene, that the only one they were allowed, the only one they could afford, where the ants were actually attacking something.
Right.
And it wasn't very long. It was very quick.
Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right. I was probably right. Whatever. But still, you have to look at the movie objectively, forgetting their reasons for why they may have done it, and say, the movie would be a little better if it was trimmed up here and if we had just a little more of this, and I'm so glad that you phrased it the way you did about the mystery. The mystery's over, but here we're still somewhat treating it that way, even though all the characters already know. So, the intention in the plot, I understand. I just think that they should have. I know I'm second guessing when I wasn't even there and don't know what the budget was and what they had to do or couldn't do, whatever. But as a viewer and as a armchair critic, this is what it needed. It needed a little more spice and a little more visual representation of the escalating threat.
Hello, Jensen. How are you?
Rather than, like what you said, just reiterate partly what I said, reiteration of what we already know, and scenes that are somewhat played as a mystery when we all already know. So, yeah.
Yeah, by this point, it's just like, okay, are we going to move things along here? Are we going to... what's the big showdown gonna happen?
I would almost be tempted to try a slight re-edit of this, putting this scene and the scene with the pilot, 30 minutes earlier, right, and seeing if that affects it, because they're not bad scenes.
No,
but just to see if it helps keep the mystery for a little longer, before they really determine some of the things they determine. It would be interesting to see how it played.
I wouldn't put it past you to give that a shot. Yeah.
I would be curious. Because, I did enjoy the movie. As bug movies go, it was quite good.
Exactly where do these ants show up?
In the river.
Did you know this movie was Oscar winning for its effects?
No, I did not know that.
It was. Yeah.
In the riverbed. Look at those big openings in the sides like sewer outlets.
I almost would have liked a throwaway line of dialogue to say, he just looked out the window and saw the tunnels, and he starts thinking, to have someone go, oh my God, they're in the tunnels. Of course they are. We've built them tunnels to live in. We need to, how ironic.
Well, we didn't build them to live in them, but...
Well, we built the tunnels that they are now using. We built their home, something that was familiar to them. Of course, that's where they are.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe that would have been against your philosophy of saying more than we need, just enough.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? I'm talking a game now, but yeah, if they did it, who knows? I like this.
This is Los Angeles.
No. But I like this plot element.
Isn't it though?
Oh yeah, this is totally LA.
Yeah.
You even see the there's a shot there. You see the Dragnet building. Dun, dun, dun,
Dun, dun, dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. I'll probably end up missing it, but look for it. Because as I was watching this, I thought, oh, they're totally in LA, and then there was a confirming shot.
Well, I recognize this.
Oh, well, yeah,
this has been shot in many times.
Many times.
Last Action Hero springs to mind.
But just keep looking. You'll see at least what I think is that building.
Okay.
But I like this idea that they're looking for the kids, and now the kids are there. There's this little mystery of where are the kids, and is this where they are? Now this is a credible mystery,
right?
Because we don't know,
and we don't know.
We don't know because they don't know.
Yeah.
And now they've got the mystery back, and now it's working. For about 20 minutes there, they had kind of gone off a little off track because they already knew. So, but now they're back into the mystery. We know that the ants took them, but they don't. We don't actually know where the kids are. We don't know. It's a 50s movie, so of course they're alive, and even if it were today, they'd still be alive probably.
Yeah.
But we don't know where they are, and we don't know how they're being held or anything. So there is a mystery. Will they get there in time? The ticking clock. It's all there now.
If we had, cut down those scenes, maybe moved them back further. Some of them, not the scene with the mother, that led them here.
Yeah.
But some of the other scenes, moved them back before, we had seen the first ant, before it was shown to be ants,
Yeah.
And just kept the scene with the mother talking about her kids missing, that would have played better, You're right, because they're like, okay, well, they still haven't let out the secret, at least to the public, of what's going on exactly, and I'm like, well, okay, but there is that mystery of where the kids are. We don't know where they are, so neither do they. That's a mystery, and they know if they find the kids, they'll find where the ants are. Mm-hmm. So that's something that would work. All that other stuff just needs to be pushed back earlier.
Earlier and trimmed down probably a little.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
But more about its place than its length.
Yeah, yeah.
Unless they ran in here. Mr.
See,
Graham!
look, no fear.
Nope.
He's just about to stroll right
Yeah,
on
I
in.
haven't been able to take my eyes off of his eyes ever since you commented on like he's got these dead eyes. They're very powerful. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it. They're kind of inset too.
Yeah, they are.
It does kind of draw you into them, and they're very big.
I wonder if in his career, if he.
There's the dragnet building.
Yeah. Okay. I know.
Is that it? Is that?
Well, you thought the same thing. At the very
At
least
least
resembles
looked
it.
like it. Yeah, I knew exactly what it. Yeah.
But it's obviously not New York. I wonder if in his career that actor ever played, a serial killer, a bad guy, because I would believe he would do very well.
Being Brooks, I can't imagine he's ever playing a bad guy. But
Yeah, Brooks had kind of a
creepy edge, to
creepy
him.
intensity to him.
A little bit. Yeah.
And I always thought that even before I, saw this, Brooks, there was something a little off about Brooks.
Well, because he did kind of snap, and then he ended up hanging himself at the end. So
yeah,
there
and
look
how, you know what? I think you just nailed it. As far as the question we had about whether or not it was a writing choice or directing choice or the actor playing him this way.
Yeah.
I think it was the actor, because look at how he is in Shawshank. The scene you're talking about when he kills himself, it's pretty nonchalant,
Yep.
It's very matter of fact. So I think that's just kind of how that guy does it, but it works. So I don't care. I can still look at the character here and have the thoughts that I've been describing the whole time. Whether or not it's due to acting ability or what, it doesn't matter. It plays on the screen in a certain way.
Yeah, see, this is when I would say the third act kind of really kicks in. I don't know, maybe the thing has 4 acts. I don't know.
I'd say the third act starts when they get into the
Well, right here when he's declaring martial law, I'm like, okay, now he's moving things along a little bit. He's announcing it to the city.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd say the third act starts pretty much when they get to the water tunnely thing.
Well, I guess the second act is just unnecessarily long. I mean, that's what we've been talking
It
about.
is. It's unnecessarily long.
Yeah.
But it probably wouldn't feel that way if those scenes were moved.
See, this is really bringing me to, Day of the Earth Stood
Oh, yeah,
Still.
definitely.
I
I have the
definitely
same thought.
had flashbacks to that,
For sure.
Not as good as the Day of the Earth
Well,
Stood
of
Still
course.
scenes, but fine in its own way.
Maybe a few, maybe thousands.
Keep shining, boy.
Yeah, well, I was like, is one of us going to say something?
Well, come on. It's
Very. Yeah,
that's how it would be if it was
of
really
its-
in that time.
It's of its time.
Yeah, it's of its time.
I repeat, stay in your home.
All white people for the most part, and the only black person there is is Shining Shoes.
And
Nice.
if he had stopped there, hey man, you can watch that while you're shining. That looks like a Hollywood set.
Oh yeah,
That looks like a
Definitely.
backlot.
it does. It's just not. That's they're not from. They're not on location now. No, they're on a lot.
That looks like the back of Universal.
Yeah.
For a moment.
You got a pass to be down here, lady?
No, but I'm with Mrs.
No
Lodge.
pass, no stay. This is a restricted area. Let's go.
Watching this movie has made me kind of curious about the other giant monster movies. That followed. Now that I'm having to think about that, I can't really think of any titles off the top of my head, but they were plentiful, especially in Japan. Gamera, Godzilla, Mothra, of course. They had their own variety. I mean, this was not enjoyable in the same way as, say, of a Godzilla movie. Like the first Godzilla, it didn't really feature a whole lot of Godzilla. Not really. And it wasn't cheesy. It wasn't playing camp. It was very serious. It took itself very seriously, and this movie takes itself seriously. And there wasn't much shown of the creature until late in the movie, and the same way here. And it was
I like
what
this.
Oh, what? I'm sorry, what?
this bit of, well, go ahead and tell the mother. She's right over there. You want to tell her that
Oh,
kids
right.
might be dead?
Yeah.
We have to act as though they're not.
Where's General O'Brien?
He's right over there by the command.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh,
Can we start now, General?
I was just trying to sound insightful. You didn't really interrupt anything. I was just making a comparison between this and the first Godzilla movie.
Oh.
It's there's only 2 black and white Godzilla movies. The first one and Godzilla Raids Again. And the first. You always laugh whenever I bring up Godzilla knowledge. But
You're the last person I ever would have expected to get into Godzilla movies.
they're different. I mean, you got to appreciate them for what they are. I would never say they're good movies. They're just fun because they're so silly. But anyway, the first movie's very serious, unlike the rest of them. They get increasingly more campy as they go along, for a while anyway. But that and this, they take themselves very seriously, and they're kind of creepy for the most part, And I found that interesting that the U.S. films kind of go the same way. There's plenty of other giant monster movies you're going to see coming out of America, and they kind of start to go the same way. They get more and more campy.
Mm-hmm.
Less style. More of scares. I don't know. It's kind of sad to see, but now we're in the man-made tunnels, man. Now we're in the third act.
Now we're in the man-made ant tunnels.
The man-made ant tunnels. Definitely in the third act for sure now.
Oh, we've been in it.
I thought martial law was when it started. You say, no, wait.
I said it was a little before.
Okay, well. So these are, I don't know what part of the LA this is, but these are quite large tunnels.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, because I've only seen sewer tunnels this big in movies, but obviously they didn't build this for the movie. This is obviously has to be something that was not being used at the time. I mean, they're driving through it and whatnot, so I'm not sure exactly where it would be.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about, L.A. and its underground like that to know. They do seem big, but like you said, they didn't build these.
Did you ever, because the mother's still there, did you ever, where are their kids? Are they going to find their kids?
Well, like I said, they're kids. They're not going to kill the kids. But
yeah, of course not. I mean, did you think that was a good element, them bringing this mom in there and having her,
Yeah.
You think it worked? Okay.
Yeah, I did.
Repeat, Kibby, in 192.
It was a very creative way to solve their problem. As a story problem, it would have been very easy to release a toxin in there to flame the whole thing, whatever. But they said in dialogue, well, we can't. We have to assume that these kids are alive, and until we find them, we can't do that. So now they have an actual reason in the plot to not use the technology that they actually have to make this job a lot easier. Now they have to go in there in a way that will put them closer to the danger than they otherwise would be. And I like it.
This is Peterson and
Yeah, this is this is when I expected to see, the all-out ant war. I expected to see planes in the air, bombs, and ants crawling through the city, people getting eaten or whatever.
That would have been so expensive.
That's what I kind of thought was coming, because, the giant ants on the poster, I was like, oh, okay, it's one of those kind of movies. I didn't know it was one of the first of its kind, so.
Yeah, no, it keeps it small.
It does, and when they ended up back here in the tunnels, I was like, oh, okay, it's going to be kind of a creepy kind of thing, and I was like, okay, it's dark, and you could argue that's for budgetary reasons, they don't want to see the ants, but it does add to the suspense.
It works.
And it brings me to, aliens, when they're tracking the aliens in the tunnels.
Well, it also keeps the story focused on the characters.
Right.
If it were to have evolved into what you're describing.
Yeah, so you never see that many ants.
No, and if it had changed, if it had developed into that more global, epic war, you wouldn't be connected to anyone. But now at this point, we're following Peterson. We're following Graham. It's interesting now. Of course, at this point, there's absolutely no reason why Peterson would be involved.
Of course not.
Now the army is here, like really here.
Right.
And he's not just there. He's like in charge.
The scientist you could justify, but
but she wouldn't be in the front. She'd be in the back.
No. But why is he here? Absolutely no reason. I mean, does he have a license to carry that on his back? I don't think so.
He doesn't have a license to carry a nuclear accelerator
on his back. Exactly. But there he is, though. And these guys who are probably trained and qualified are sitting in the Jeep.
Exactly. That's what I was saying.
I know. But we like him. So.
Whatever. Yeah, we're interested in him. So.
Yeah.
They're alive. Tell Mrs. Lodge her boys are alive.
I like that. See, look at that. Nice touch.
What, with a mother?
It was a level to the scene that most movies of this kind wouldn't have had.
Yeah, emotional tension.
It makes it better.
Sure. Oh, that kid looks like he's catatonic.
One's catatonic. Look at the other one's crying. I like it.
Well, I think the other one's the bad actor.
Well, I don't know, but it plays a certain way. I like it.
I must be near the nest. And I'm in a bind with the kids. I can't use the flamethrower. They're right in the line of fire. So tell O'Brien to send in troops.
See, I'm surprised they actually used the flamethrower, for the... Because, they actually do torch these props. So, at least it looks like they do. So, it looks like they're being destroyed as they do it. And I'm like, well, that's not very cost efficient, but...
Well, anything else wouldn't look right.
No. It does look cool, though. But it does look vicious. A little more vicious than bullets, don't you think?
Yeah, and like you said, they're not just shooting them up and then burning them as a safety measure. They're burning them alive.
Yeah.
And they're dying because of this.
Yeah, I mean, there is no, post work, though. You never hear them squealing in agony, but I think it would have added something really sinister if they did.
Are you sure they don't squeal?
I don't think so. I
think they do.
Maybe I didn't hear it. I mean, you hear their trademark sound when they're approaching.
Yeah, that weird sound.
But I don't recall hearing them screaming in agony or anything, making any kind of sounds of that sense.
Not overtly so, but I
well, if it was much more present, then I think that would have been much more creepy. If at least you saw them writhing in agony and Harry, and then you show a close up of one of the actors' faces and them reacting to that. Oh, I feel bad now. But you never do.
Here he is, man, Mr. Hardcore himself.
Well, he's a Renaissance man. He can do anything.
He really is. He did, see that full on burning that prop up. It's gone.
Yeah. So, and how many ants do they torch? So,
all of them.
Yeah.
They all get the fire at some point.
Come on, Jerry. Right?
It was at this point right there when they showed that one coming. I was like, oh, he's dead. That's it.
Oh, you mean...
I knew he was going to die. As soon as we saw the third one coming, I was like, okay, Peterson's going to sacrifice himself.
Okay.
I knew
the children.
Exactly what was going to happen.
I was really surprised when the ant picks him up in his jaws. I was like, oh, they're going
Yeah,
there.
I was a little, and I thought, no, they're not going to snap him in half, are they?
I was like, wow.
A la Starship Troopers.
Yeah. It's like, you got balls, movie. I was like, I didn't see that coming.
I expected to see blood coming out of his mouth,
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course, that's a little too graphic.
Him going, Rico, you know what to do.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Yeah, but I thought that was kind of cool, that they gave us that right there, and we've been with this guy, and it's like,
I other than seeing it about a minute before it happened, never would have thought that he was going to die.
Well, at least they give him a heroic death. Well, he deserved no less.
And it's not too much fanfare here, He just makes sure that the kids got out, and that's it. He checks out.
I think it would have been interesting. Could they do blood like that back then?
I don't think they were allowed.
No? Okay, it would have been nice if there was a little bit of blood. like on his and it coming out of his mouth or something.
Yeah, well,
like that.
yeah, that's why I thought when it grabbed him and I was expecting the blood to spurt out of his mouth, but I thought no, it's too gory for a 50s movie.
See, this here with all the machine guns, I'm like, yeah, well, it's not as big as a climax as I thought, but it kind of reminds me now that I'm looking at it, as a cost-saving measure, because we've often been referring to Starship Troopers while watching this.
It's a very similar ending.
Yeah, but if you remember, I don't know if you do or not, that the sequel to Starship Troopers, that went straight to video.
I never saw it.
It was horrible. Went straight to video. It took place pretty much all in caves,
that's because
in tunnels
it reduces
like this.
the numbers.
Right.
And you can say there's hundreds of them, and through editing you can make it look like there's hundreds of them, but you only see 2 or 3 on screen at any given time because the space narrows what you see. So yeah, it's a very effective cost-saving measure.
Oh wow, that guy got hit.
Yeah, sure did.
It looked like it hurt too. I don't know.
And look at this beam; it goes right back.
Because that thing looks
boom. Look at that.
It does look heavy, so it makes me.
Yeah, it was like on a spring or something.
Yeah.
I don't think they had quite the safety measures for stuntmen back then that they did now.
It definitely doesn't look like it. So.
Start digging, you guys.
Do you think it would have been better if Peterson died with the woman, with the scientist, or with the guy, how it turned out? You think it would have been better, if it was between, I don't know, because you think they had a closer relationship, him and Peterson and the guy, or what? What do you think?
I'm not following what you're saying.
Well, because when Peterson dies, he comes up to him.
Oh yeah.
So do you think it would have been more interesting if it had been Pat?
No, definitely not. Should have been him.
Okay.
They had developed. I mean, it's not much, but they had developed a very slight, man-to-man relationship. They were 2 guys from 2 different worlds, but yet they both got down to action when they needed to.
Okay.
I felt they respected each other.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought he was gonna die here for a second.
Yeah, I know. So did I.
I was like, oh, this guy's toast.
Well, once we lost Peterson, I thought, well, okay, anyone can go.
Yeah. Anything goes now, but I love it that Chris Kringle is he's there with them, but he's not outfitted in any kind of gear or anything like that.
What would be the point?
So this. Oh, I was like, oh, we see the wings.
Yeah, it was interesting that we saw them.
I at least saw it. They did make reference to it, although we never see them flying around.
So look at that. Don't burn them until we get the okay.
Yeah, I was like, wow, don't burn them. I was like, jeez, it sounds so cruel.
And look, see, very subtle, but she checks to make sure he's okay.
Okay, yeah, you're right. You're right.
And when she got into her truck, her Jeep, and he got into his, he walked her to it, got her in, and basically gave her nonverbal goodbye, just in case. So it was all there.
See, look, fortunately, we're just in time. I thought this to be particularly cruel because the ants aren't doing anything.
I know. He's like, I know. He just said, he's like, okay, we're sure.
They're just sitting there, and they're like,
I know, yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's mean.
That's because the queens don't fight. It's the soldiers that do.
It was just they're just sitting there watching them burn. I was
yeah,
like, wow.
It is kind of cold. They should have at least had the queens move to attack them or something.
I half expected the flamethrowers covering the screen to be the end, and it was going to flash to the end, go to black. I was like, oh, wow. That's pretty mean. I was like, that would have been kind of a cruel way to go out right off on the flamethrowers. But
and I love that, Dr. Claus, no remorse.
None whatsoever. And this is the last shot. We're seeing them burn alive. I was like,
yeah,
wow.
They're shaking. They're moving. It's pretty gruesome.
And that's it.
We get the little speech that Santa gave, and then that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. There are no credits, so just back to the menu screen. The old FBI
any final thoughts?
I'd just like to thank Ravenheart for throwing us a suggestion for us to do. We just sending us some acknowledgement, that we don't get very often. It was nice to be recognized that we're still out on the airwaves. So thank you for listening to us. throughout the years, maybe here and there. I don't expect anyone to listen to every one of our commentaries, although there's absolutely no problem with that if you want to.
They're quite good.
We strive to be not terrible anyway. We try. We do. But anyway, I enjoyed the movie.
We should make that our tagline on our website.
We strive not to be terrible.
We strive not to be terrible. I think you said we strive not to be not good or not bad.
I like that the other way around. We strive not to be terrible.
Look at that picture on the menu.
Yeah,
I see what you mean.
Yeah,
the advertising suggests that it's going to be this, top of the city, big.
It really is misleading, isn't it?
Epic siege, and it's not that at all.
Yeah. Well,
Kill 1 and 2 take its place.
Yeah, see what I mean? With that kind of advertising. But,
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was definitely out of left field. This wasn't something that we would have ever done had it not been, if it were brought to us. Not to say that we didn't enjoy the movie. Justin brought up a lot of good points that kind of flew over my head when I first watched it that I didn't pick up on until a second watch. So thankfully he brought those up because I was more looking at the monster aspects of the movie, because that's kind of what I thought it was going to be, kind of coming from a Godzilla aspect. I thought it might be one of those type of things. I wasn't really sure what I was getting into. But I did enjoy, I think, the first act the most, when it was a mystery, and you didn't see anything. And the creepy girl that kind of should have stayed for a little longer, but didn't. We talked about its problems. It did have some problems in the second act. It went on too long. And I think it had a lot of comparisons to Alien, that maybe that's where James Cameron got some of the ideas. I don't know. I don't think he would admit to it if it's true, but
I don't know.
You think he would? Maybe.
And just as I'd be very curious to know whether Cameron was inspired by
Perhaps.
this movie to place his movies in certain locales. And I also wonder
it's not just
if,
Cameron. It was the first director of Alien.
Well, yeah, both.
Yeah,
Ridley Scott.
Yeah,
And I also wonder if Starship Troopers guy,
Paul Verhoeven.
if Paul Verhoeven has seen this, if he was likewise inspired by it, because there are certain similarities.
Yeah.
So I wonder. I'd be very curious to know if this movie was in both of their minds when they were making theirs.
Mm-hmm. I mean, as we mentioned, it is regarded as a classic of its genre, even though we'd never seen it.
I can see why.
Yeah. So, and watching it now, I can see why. But that pretty much wraps up my thoughts. Did you have anything else you wanted to mention before we close out?
Just that I enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the things that I pointed out are the reasons why. The monster genre is not really my, not really drawn to it. But as far as those movies go, this one held up. And I was especially surprised at that, given that it was a 50s, monster movie. Very surprised that I enjoyed it as much as I did. I think it's a really good example of movie making, and that it's not really about the monster. It's about the tension and the terror that the monster causes.
Exactly.
And as we talked about in the first act, it's about the mystery of what even is the monster. That's why Jaws is good. That's why Alien is good. Even Aliens, I mean, compared to movies made today, you don't see as much of those aliens as you think you do. Yes, a lot more in Aliens than you do in Alien, but compared to a movie today, not as much, not as much screen time as you may think. This movie is kind of in a similar fashion. They get like little brief encounters with them and then have the big finale. I definitely see the groundwork laid in this movie that other movies would, not just modern day movies, but even just other B movies of the time would kind of follow. And yeah,
Okay.
I enjoyed it.
All right. Well, I hope Ravenheart. I hope you enjoyed our commentary.
Yeah, thank you, Ravenheart, for introducing us to something that we would never have seen.
Yeah. Thank you. So, until next time, I'm Josh. So long.
I'm Justin. Good night.